Hi, Chris.
Hey, Mary Jo, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Fine.
Good.
That's going to be hard to hear.
Okay.
You know what? What if we put one of the mics by that? Would that help you? If we don't, he's not going to be here.
It's going to be hard to hear.
Jennifer, it might be hard to hear. Just thinking we'd put this by it.
I can hear you guys fine.
Yeah, I think Jen has a problem though.
You can't call in using the machine.
Well, it's either mute or not.
Oh.
So if you mute it, everyone's muted.
Right.
Come on. Hopefully it'll help.
All right. Do my best.
Okay. Ready to roll?
Mm-hmm.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Selectmen meeting, Monday, the 20th of September. First item will be to, unfortunately, the minutes due to illness of our clerk are not available, so we'll have to cover that at our next meeting. So the first item will be appointment to Harbor Management Commission. We have a resignation from Jeffrey Meeky. So we have a suggestion of slowing down an hour to be elevated from a alternate position to a regular member position. I talked with the chairman, and while there are three good alternates, I think this was a suggestion to elevate, slowing down an hour to fulfill the term to January of 2022.
This was the chairman's suggestion?
Yeah, I spoke with him, and he said, well, I could have any of them, and I said, well, it'd be helpful to have one. So
I'll make a motion for Mr. Dan Howard.
Okay. Moved by Kerr. Do I have a second? I'll second that. We'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you. I think we have a change in practice anyway that's showing up. We have 3 alternates, and you have indicated that the chair recommended a particular candidate, and we received by email only that particular candidate's bio, if you will. But I emailed the chair and asked if that was really his feeling, that this was the best candidate, because all 3 alternates seem to be valuable, and I've seen them all work at meetings and participate, and I wanted to understand if that's the case. So I got a different story from him, and I'm not sure what's going on here. According to the chair, he said, attached is my email to the town requesting a replacement for Jeff Meinke on the HMC. Clearly stated, I'm leaving the decision up to the Board of Selectmen. All 3 candidates are of equal seniority. They all have pros and cons. I thought it best if the Selectmen, who see the bigger picture, could make the choice. Turnover on HMC is frequent, and no matter the choice is made, more opportunities will come to be for the alternates. At most meetings, a regular member is absent, and the alternates are seated for the missing person on a regular basis. Best regards. So why are we not looking at the 3 alternates and having a discussion? Why are we just going with one person in particular?
Well, in my conversation with him, he did express satisfaction with all of them, and I said, well, it would be helpful to come up with a recommendation. One or another may be nominated. It's not exclusive to one candidate. If somebody feels differently,
Well, you clearly do. You only sent us one bio. You didn't send us all three.
That's right. Yeah.
So my point is, the process is not fair and transparent. You've made a choice on a private conversation.
It's a suggestion, and it's a vote on it. If there are other nominations, we can entertain other nominations.
The motion on the table is for Sloan Dannenhauer, and that discussion is on Sloan Dannenhauer.
Mm-hmm.
The other two alternates were not even mentioned. And those are my comments.
If there's other suggestions, they can be offered. But after my discussion with the chairman, it seemed like this was the one that settled out. And if there's other points of view, well, we can listen to other nominations.
That's what's supposed to happen at that table between the three of us. We're supposed to have the alternatives and have a discussion. You did not present the information on Michael Barnes or Thomas Kelo, only Sloan.
Well, other nominations have been settled down to one of other alternates as well.
That's really all I have to say on this.
All right, I guess we're ready to vote then. All in favor of Sloan Dannenhauer, say aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, project updates, Soundview Sidewalks.
Thank you. I don't have much more since we met 2 weeks ago, other than the project is going through the permitting process now for 290 Shore Road for the bus stop. We got the 824 referral, from planning. We got a letter of no jurisdiction from Inland Wetlands. Met with the Tree Commission last week, and Zoning Commission accepted our application for public hearing, which will be held at their meeting next month. I think it's October 12th. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Next one is the Ferry Road. The engineer is, I tried to speak with the engineer about how he's making out with some of the work that would be to avoid the tree roots, and I didn't get a call back as yet, so, but his assignment was to come up with a way to work around the tree roots as best as possible, and then that would be reviewed by the group, and probably within the month, the tree warden and the arborist will mark trees that would be slated for removal, of which there are 4. I think there's only one larger tree, and then we would schedule a public hearing, because that when you mark a tree, a public hearing is a possible step as well. So that will be coming up, as I say, I think within a month.
Tim, did you then decide which side of the street the project is going to be on then?
No, that recommendation would happen after the hearing, when we could get input from the various residents that we haven't talked with.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is that regardless of what side of the street the project's on, some trees will be coming down.
This would just be, the tree warden would mark them, and in terms of the specific removal, I don't know that there has to be a time very shortly thereafter. I think, as I said before, this likely would happen. The project would likely roll out in the spring, early spring, late, probably April-ish time frame, and so if the experts decided that the tree activity would be best to have happen before that, I don't know just what their recommendation would be. There are 2 larger trees, and then I think 2 smaller trees. So it's that work would probably occur before the contractor started, but not necessarily this fall.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get clarity on is there are trees planned for removal once the tree warden decides which ones should come down.
Right.
Irrespective of which side of the road the sidewalk is going to go on.
Well, if the decision were to locate it on the south side, then that would not be necessary, removing trees on the north side. It would only be if the sidewalk, after all was said and done, would be situated on the north side, then the tree activity would occur. So it's going to be a simultaneous decision, more or less.
And are these 4 trees, which side of the street are these 4 trees on?
North.
They're all on the north side.
Yeah, because there's only a couple of trees total on the south side.
Okay, thank you.
Grassy Hill Road Bridge, the
Sanji Sewers is next.
Soundview Sewers, right. Okay. Spoke with Rich Prendergast, who's the chairman of the WPCA, and he indicates that the New London officials are likely this week going to sign the intermunicipal agreement, which would give O-Line the ability to have a concrete deal with the sewer plant in New London. The other intermunicipal agreement is with East Lyme and Waterford, and so we received a letter on that, but because of some personnel changes, that is likely going to take a little longer. Previously, though, that whole matter was financially and philosophically pretty well set. New London was a bit more problematic, but still we do not have an agreement yet from East Lyme and Waterford, so we'll be getting into that, and with some of the personnel changes due to the election, that will take some time, probably a month. The bids are...
Tim, sorry, you're still on Soundview.
Yeah.
Okay.
The bids have been re-bid, and we're hoping that there will be some responses to the bids that will come back in October. We're crossing our fingers that by breaking that project into smaller pieces, that the bids will come in a more satisfactory manner. But that'll probably be mid-October. That's what I have there.
Once the IMA with New London is signed, what is the next step for the town of Old Lyme?
Really, it'll just set the stage. We have actually paid $10,000, which is part of a larger sum that would be due, and monies would not be due until things started flowing. So it sets up the structure and the amount of the ultimate payment, and we're involved with the 3 private beaches, because the 3 private beaches, they made the deal with New London, but since we were not part of that at the beginning, O-Line would join that agreement in progress, if you will. And so there's been some discussion about the money part of it, but we've come to an agreement on what it will be. So the capacity's set, and we will join when we start flowing, and it will be part of a cost-sharing agreement as well that will that will detail how costs are shared between the four entities.
And when will we work on the cost-sharing agreement? Because I know we were members of, or we joined about a year ago, we worked on the commitment to join the cost-sharing agreement. So now we're moving into a cost-sharing agreement. So when do we start working on that paperwork and agreement with the Board of Selectmen?
It's a bit mumbly there, but I guess the question is, when do we get into the cost-sharing agreement?
Correct.
That will be at a time in the future, hasn't been identified. Because the three beaches are working with clean water money, they're keeping track of how things are going, and ultimately we will pay our share and join in. But they really don't want us involved at this point until we have our agreement signed with the New London and the two towns, the piping and the pumping stations. It's kind of a strange situation, but the concept is there, but our actual getting into the cost sharing agreement will be dependent upon a couple of things that haven't happened yet. So this agreement to join the cost sharing agreement is the device that we're using at the moment. Grassy Hill Road Bridge. Our engineer made a presentation to the DOT and to the Corps of Engineers, and at that meeting, the Corps was wanting to change the configuration of the bridge from two equal size, let's call it pipes, to a larger one and a smaller one. Our engineer can do that. It will be a small change in the design, but he doesn't really think that's a material event, so that likely we'll talk with the Board of Finance about, it'll be about a $10,000 engineering adjustment. We're still trying to have the DOT give us written confirmation of certain things that we have been working on, such as the extension of time and the larger amount of money that would be required. And so we're trying to talk with our representative at the DOT to get that nailed down. It's been verbally assured, but they'd like to have it in writing.
Tim, after the storm, I know this came up at our last meeting, it's not directly related to this, but after the storm, we had a lot of water going over that culvert, over the road, a significant amount of water, and there was a big tree that I brought to the Selectmen's attention that was stuck in the pipe, a huge tree. And obviously that's been removed, which is great, but have we done anything to assess the safety of that bridge in the meantime?
You'll have to say it again. If you push that to the side, it would help.
Sure.
Thank you.
I brought up to the Selectmen's attention that after, I guess that the big rainstorm, that Ina?
Yeah, big rainstorm, yeah.
We had a tremendous amount of rain going over that roadway, and in fact it closed the road for a time. Also, there was a huge tree trunk stuck in the pipe, and I brought that to your attention. Huge. And it's been removed, and what my question is, have we done any assessment to assure that that bridge is safe in the meantime?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if Ed and Public Works looked at it, but I'm not aware that anybody's been contacted to. That was refurbished a few years ago, and MACNIC did a work on it, so I think the bridge itself is in good shape. The sidewalls on the bridge are the more vulnerable things. So the answer is that no.
Well, I'd like to suggest that you have maybe MACNUC go out and look at that, because there was a tremendous amount of water going over that bridge because of the storm, and that tree, I mean, the tree was huge and stuck in it, so the water had nowhere to go but over the bridge. And if MACNUC, it was the persons that were done, came out when people were someone had hit the bridge because it's narrow and old, so that was a safety concern, and they had to come out and, as you say, do some work on it a few years ago. Can we have somebody come and take a look at that in the meantime, because this bridge work will not be done for a few years?
Yeah, it'll be probably 2023 before this could happen. Yeah, I'll talk to Ed about that.
Thank you.
The next item is the transfer station scale house. The contractor, Weiss Construction, has been selected, and they'll be starting very shortly, actually. The crawl space foundation has been installed, and so they were lining up materials to be brought to the site, so that should be happening fairly quickly, and that should be a 60-day project to construct the building there. So Phil will be monitoring that and supervising it. So it seems like our 60-day interval should be good, and as soon as the materials are there and they start, then that's when the clock begins, but that's a good news. The smaller temporary building will be relocated to Public Works, and that'll be removed once they can make the switch. The next item is the Ames open space purchase. The Open Space Commission has provided I'd call it a purchase and sale agreement, and so there was a couple little minor edits in that which have been reviewed and signed off on, so that document has been signed, and we now are we're waiting for essentially some of the approvals that the town must have. It would be Board of Finance and a town meeting, and I believe a planning commission. So those are things which are typical in a real estate purchase that need to be taken care of. So that's moving forward. There is a seller mortgage that will assist in the purchase, and the Open Space Fund has the balance. It's got more than the balance, but it would provide the balance so that the closing can occur when these other approvals are in hand. So we discussed that the other meeting too. The next item is the Town of Mahague, let's see, we'll move this forward. Okay, I circulated a letter I won't return to the file here, but
This is what we received today?
yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, so Town Council has sent a letter to Mr. Frampton. I can read it. It says, I am receipt of your memorandum to provided to Tim Griswold. Our firm serves as legal counsel to the town of Oline. Welcome to town. I trust you will continue to discover the town's natural beauty and experience the warmth and friendliness of its residents as I have for over the last 38 years. Quite obviously, the town's position is contrary to that expressed in your memorandum. This was the document where Mr. Frampton concludes that the town landing is not owned by the town, it's owned by he and his wife. That said, I do appreciate your willingness to share copies of your source materials so that we may continue to review your claims. I'd be pleased to meet with you at any time at my New London office, Old Lyme Town Hall, or at your residence as you so choose to further discuss this matter and to obtain the reference documentation. In the interim, despite our contrary legal positions, I trust that you and those representing you will make no efforts to dissuade visitors seeking to enjoy the town landing as we attempt to amicably resolve this matter. Looking forward to meeting you, Jack Collins. So this, I think, sets the stage for a review of Mr. Frampton put together documentation, and the town council and he hopefully will get together and possibly this week and discuss that. So that's where that stands.
Tim, I just want to address this memo that we got today. In our previous meetings, plural, you had indicated that you received the research from Mr. Frampton and you had sent it all to town attorney for review. His memo, Jack Collins' memo dated September 20th, speaks of a memo that he received. So did he receive a memo, or did he receive, I think you told us at our last meeting it was a 30-page document. What
yeah, it's 16 pages, looks like. Yep.
Okay. So when Jack refers to a memo, is he referring to the 16 pages?
I believe so. Mm-hmm.
And when did he get that?
I would say it says on here a draft date of the 7th of July, but I'm not sure just when it was delivered to me. But I provided it to him, and so it's been probably 3 or 4 weeks that he's had it so far.
Okay. So when we last talked last week, you listened to the public comment and you indicated you were going to talk to, it says attorney, or Mr. Frampton. Is Mr. Frampton an attorney? This letter says Attorney Frampton.
I believe he is an attorney, and I don't know.
I didn't know that till I read this. Okay. So, and so did you call Mr. Frampton or Attorney Frampton?
Yeah, we actually sat down and discussed, and he was reiterating that he believes he owns it. And I said, well, that we have to obviously review, and we'll come to our conclusion as well. So I think we are in the middle of trying to sort that out, but in the meantime, I believe we are in the position that it is a town landing, and that we want the public to be able to come to the landing as they have, and that we would hope that the public would be respectful of Mr. Frampton and his wife's privacy, and that they would not make comments to the public that they're on private property and infer that they should not be there.
So, yeah, that makes sense. Did you discuss the signage just with him when you sat down with him?
Yeah, a little. We talked about that the sign hasn't been put up, and he was thinking that depending how things work, why it might not be necessary. But so I think that the signage, I don't know whether it's a critical thing at this point. Certainly, it would be. I think having a sign that indicates the town landing, in case somebody doesn't know where it is, would be helpful. But in terms of the internal things and so forth, it might make some sense to let the process conclude about the positions, and if there's still opposite conclusions, then we have to figure out what we do about that. But in keeping with the fact that we believe it's town property, I think we would want to ensure that the public may come, as they always have, and that people are pretty acquainted. I think most of the people that Kami indicated are, for the most part, local people. I think a year ago, after he took possession, there was a number of, seemed like a greater number of people, according to him, were coming to the landing. I think now it's far fewer, and so even with this bird migration, I don't get the sense that there's a great big number of people coming to the property. So I think it's...
Might be afraid to. I'm just throwing that out there. If they're having someone yell at them to get off, they might be afraid to come down. Have you been down there recently?
No.
Okay, I went down there, and I just want to provide you with what's going on there. And because we haven't done what we agreed to do, I think some of this would have been avoided. A lot of planting is going on. Significant shrubbery is being added. And I'll present it to you. I mean, these are like 5-foot shrubs that are looking like they're going in.
Are they on our property, town property, Mary Jo?
I don't know, Chris. I hesitate to say, but it was where we were talking about putting the 2 parking spots, so I would assume that's town property. If it's where they're putting some of these bushes. Yep. I don't want to assume either, but one would think, if that's where we're going to put the cars, that that's town property.
Well, the parking would be over here. This is the little lane that goes down to the water.
Yep.
And the parking would be over
Yep.
here.
So if you look at where some of those shrubs are, that's where you're pointing to.
There's some new plants in here?
Mm-hmm. They haven't gone in yet, see?
Well, once I get out of the house tomorrow, I'll take a ride down there also and check it out. Because I haven't been there in a long time.
I see some sort of a wire. Do you know what that is?
It looks like cable. It runs across the path from somewhere from their property across our path, and it connects to this tree here. So that's why I took that. It looked to me like it's cable and semi-buried in certain spots.
Is this a utility pole? Or?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is it a new pole?
No.
Okay.
Does it look like it's something that comes from the pole down?
No, it looks like it comes up and it attaches right there.
This looks...
Yeah, that's the wire going across the pathway to the tree.
Yeah. Okay.
How was your reception by the occupants, Mary Jo? Were they...
There was nobody there except me, so I guess I was welcome.
Guess what?
I guess I was welcome.
Nobody was there. Okay. Well, as far as what I said before, it's town property. He has to prove to us otherwise. And I'm glad we sent that letter today. You guys hear that?
Yes.
Respond now or wait until public comment period. Since I can answer most of those questions, I'll wait.
Would you mind having Mr. Frampton?
Yeah, I think you should wait for public comment so everyone can talk at the same time during public
Okay,
comment.
great.
Anything more on this one then?
No.
American Recovery Plan, we're going out with a email that will ask people for times that they could meet. A monkey something. And so we'll try to get the most people on our group to be able to meet at the same time and schedule something within the next week to 10 days. I think Michelle was going to come up with something very shortly on a meeting time. And we would probably work it like this, where we could have people in person, which I think would be helpful for people to get to know each other, and then those that would rather call in by telephone may do so. The next item is just to recap that the town meeting agenda for the police 42,000 passed at the special town meeting last week. So
That's just for clarity. That was not for the police. It was for the overspending in the police budget and ranger budget. It wasn't because nobody was supporting the police. It's because the town overspent the budget. That's what the meeting was for.
that happens. Okay. Under new business, I just want to mention that the Estuary Transit District, people may know that there is a proposal to have our Estuary Transit District merge with the Middletown Transit District, and the Estuary Transit District would be the main driver there. Joe Comerford, who was our director of our transit district, would be the head of the consolidated group. This has been an extraordinarily complicated matter. It's taken a number of months and still has a ways to go, and some of it is in executive session and other parts of it are not. So I think it's safe to say that things are moving in the right direction. I think that the two districts appreciate the fact that two small transit districts would have a very difficult time staying in business. Most of the other districts are pretty good size. So this merger would be in keeping with the Council of Government, which goes from down our way up through Middletown, and that would be the combined district. So some individuals on the transit district on the board have worked tremendously hard on making this happen, but it requires up to the Commissioner of Transportation to finalize it. And so it seems to be going toward conclusion, but it's just been a very long and arduous process, and I think it'll be very good when it all happens. There would likely be a facility in the Middletown area as well as the shoreline for the buses, simply for logistical purposes. But Joe Comerford has done a very good job at managing our district, and so it's a tribute to him to get it almost done here. That there will be more coming on that.
Tim, when do you think this will be concluded?
We're waiting for an initial sign-off letter from the DOT, from the commissioner, and then that should be the more or less the skeleton on which you then put the meat. So I think it would probably be 6 months and maybe longer before the whole thing were done. But, you're consolidating staffs and equipment and facilities, so it's a pretty complicated. In Middletown, you have, it's not just a group of towns like it is down here. It would be a couple towns. There'd be other towns. Once things happen, they would join in, and it would be a larger Middletown portion of it than it is now. But there have been a lot of these dollars that come to the transit district go through the DOT, they're federal and state monies, so that all that funding, it's very difficult when you're talking a multi-year deal because funding is usually for a short duration. It's not multi-year, but I think the DOT is very sincerely interested in having this happen. So it's not as if they're reluctant, it's just very time-consuming.
Will it affect anything we're planning for the transit hub in Old Lyme?
No. In fact, we asked the question, what likely might happen to the dues that the member towns are paying, and initially there would not be an increase, a material increase. It's not like if we're paying $100 now, we're going to pay $200. So they were very confident that even though it will be a larger organization, the dollars that we're now committing would be in line with what we're doing now. So we'll see.
Okay, so it sounds like they think there'll be some economies of scale.
Yes.
And it sounds like then the bus schedule and the bus plans for the shoreline, at least Old Lyme, won't change, to your knowledge.
I think it'll be the same. Actually, some of the service has increased. There are things going to Hammonasset that are new, because it goes all the way over to Madison now at this point. Mm-hmm. So there were some trolley services and some additional things. And there's been a lot of computerization so that people can use their computer to reserve seats. And so it's come a long way from standing out there on the sidewalk waving. Yeah. And the ridership is, of course, the pandemic took its toll. People were not riding the buses as much, and the district, just like you see on TV with school buses, the district is pressed to have a stable driver and a bunch of drivers. But they are coming back to pre-pandemic levels. Not quite there yet, but on the way.
Yeah, okay, and it's good to know that Joe is still going to be in charge. I've tried him 3 times to get a picture of the shelter that you've indicated they will provide us for the bus shelter, free to the town. Yeah. And I thought for our zoning progress, it would be nice to have a picture of just the standard shelter we could expect. Yeah. I have not heard back from him.
Yeah, I visited with him, and I think he could, at the point that we need some of these engineering things to where to put the bolts and the concrete and sort of thing, he'll have that. But it's going to be your 3-sided, kind of, it looks like a plexiglass type of thing, so they're pretty uniform. So okay. We can get that too.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think we are at the point of I might call on Mr. Frampton since he had his hand up before, if he would approach the bench. You want to bring a chair up or whatever makes you comfortable there. You can come a little.
you want me to talk to the mic? Is that-
Yeah, because it goes into the recording device. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for the opportunity to participate, and I think I can answer perhaps Mary Jo's questions and respond to this letter, which I received an hour ago, well after you all got it. It's addressed to Attorney Frampton. And I am an attorney, but I'm not a real estate attorney. Fortunately, it doesn't take a real estate attorney to do a title search. So nearly 3 months ago, after several months of work, I filed with the town and gave to Tim a memorandum, which is a title search of the property at 10 Ferry Road. It's not a legal opinion, it's not a claim, it's a title search with a lot of additional historical information. A title search is the way you establish ownership in the United States and in Connecticut since well before the Revolution. It's an analysis of deeds and documents that are next door. They're quoted, they're referenced, the pagination is in there, they're cited. Anybody can go in and look at the documents. It's black or white. Either you own the property or you don't own the property. In our view, it's a definitive demonstration that we own the property. So the first essential response that I got was a letter which I received, as you said, about an hour ago from Jack Collins, with whom I've arranged to have a meeting tomorrow.
Is your letter the same as ours?
Sorry?
Is your letter the same as the one we got today?
I'm sure it's the same. You wrote one.
Looks like this, the Tim read?
Right.
Okay.
So that was delivered to me an hour ago. In time for you to cite it at this meeting. So when I originally brought the material to Tim, I said, I think this is pretty definitive. It's not just our view. I think your own documents establish that we own the property. But if there's something wrong with this, if this town has a claim, if there's a document you can show us or an error that you can show us that there's something wrong with this, if the town has anything it can show to demonstrate that it owns the property, please tell us. I'd like to see it. That was 3 months ago. This is the first response that I've got. So I have to say that my reaction to this is that I'm inclined to say to Jack Collins tomorrow, unless the town or their lawyers can show me a document or make a claim or have any explanation for why the town claims any ownership, since your own documents show to the contrary, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have to simply concede that the town concedes that we own it. If you have no claim, how can you claim that you own it? So I think that's what I'm going to have to say to him. In the meantime, I want to respond to his letter, which is quite fair. He says, I trust that while we are reviewing your claim, reviewing our title search, normally this can be done in 48 hours, particularly when the documents are all here. But, of course, the town wants to be very, very careful. While we continue the review of your claim, I trust that you and those representing you will make no efforts to dissuade visitors seeking to enjoy Town Landing as we attempt to amicably resolve this matter. Well, I hope that we can amicably resolve the matter. We will continue to welcome and encourage all of those people who have been using the back driveway on our property, Town Landing, for a year, and there are quite a few. Some are neighbors. We've gotten to know most of them. They come on foot with dogs, a couple of bicycles, jogging, and we have welcomed, and we will continue indefinitely and permanently to welcome those people on foot, pedestrians. I had hoped to avoid doing the things that the town asked us to do or told us to do when it was assumed that the town owned the property, which is to demarcate 2 parking places, which would eliminate about half of that space for parking, and to put a rock in the path so that you couldn't drive a car all the way into the wetlands. I had been hoping to avoid to do that because I was trying not to send signals to local people that we were being difficult about this until the town got a chance to resolve it. But I think perhaps the wise thing to do would be to go ahead and do that, because it would at least, in fact, discourage people from driving cars down there.
Do they actually drive down that little, we have a picture
They
here.
do. Yesterday afternoon, the mother of a neighbor, she encouraged through email traffic to make a point, who was apparently out of the house for the first time since heart surgery, brought her car from way away and drove the car into
Down
the
here.
wetlands, way down into the wetlands, could hardly get out, just to make a point, and swore at my wife when she was leaving. The only people in 3 months, you can't see the birds from there, so nobody has come for the birds by car or on foot. People would come on foot if you could see it. The only people, so we've had construction since late June, so as far as we can tell, in 3 months, 3.5 months, 5 or 6, 7 people have all been neighbors from Colt Lane or up Tentamahaig Road who come down for the sole purpose of demonstrating that they have a right to use the property. And I can understand that. I appreciate that, because they don't know what the town's doing here. So they're afraid they're going to lose the opportunity to be there. And some of these people have advertised or even purchased their houses with the promise that they had a deeded right to this property, which of course is just a matter of real estate fraud. They feel this is important to them, and if they can want to walk down there, it is important to them. We're going to permit that forever. What we are not going to do, though, is we are not going to encourage people to drive down there in the next 2 or 3 weeks just to make a point. Like the person who came yesterday and shouted at my wife, "Well, we hope that you will be forced to have your property upgraded," as they told her. So those people we are not going to encourage. I understand why they're coming. If I were a neighbor and I thought this was in doubt, I would want to come down and prove my point too. But we almost called the police yesterday because it's a jihad. Every 20 minutes somebody would come down. They all knew they were coming.
It's a what?
They all knew they were coming.
So did you call it a jihad?
Well, yeah, I called it a jihad.
Oh my
When
goodness.
your wife and your dog are out there planting plants, and every 15 or 20 minutes people come down the road in a car to prove they can drive by your feet and drive into the wetlands, I call that a jihad. Yes, I do. And it's been that way. It was that way last spring, last fall, into the winter. And it's no longer that way. People don't come down there anymore, except people who want to prove that they have the right to use it. Perfect. I can't say that's illegitimate, but it's hostile. They're angry. They yell at us. They can be threatening. And they're doing it because the status of the property is unclear to many of those people in the public. Nobody has read anything. Have you, Mary Jo, have you read the document?
I never received it.
What do you mean you never received it? It's a public document.
I never received it, Tim.
Well, I won't speak to that. It's a public document. Anybody can look at it. Anybody can go in there and repeat the trace. There's nothing hidden about it. You can go in there and look at the documents. I did this when I was in high school. I traced my family from the late 1600s in the eastern shore of Maryland using a title search. And you can do it too. You can read what we sent in, what we submitted to the town.
I did request in writing that Tim provide that to the selectmen. I did send him an email to that effect today.
Well,
after we got the vote.
our position has been consistent that we want people to use this. We bought it with the assumption it was a right-of-way. We love that. yes, we're putting in some more plants to shield the people who walk down that way from our kitchen view. We're getting ready so that it increase our privacy on what you thought was our property.
And the plants are on 12 town
Well,
of
they haven't
Ames?
gone in yet, they're sitting there. But from our point of view, there isn't, we think it's pretty definitive. And if the town or its lawyers think that it's not definitive, then tell us why. Tell us what the basis for that is. There isn't a document in the record that shows the town ever had any ownership interest in this property since 1674. None, zero. If the town's going to claim the property, show the property owner, who's now proved that he owns it, why the town has a claim. Go in the files, go in the documents, show us a deed, show us how the town got the property. How did the town get the property back from the lords after 1674? Never did. So at some point, I'm going to have to say to the town's lawyer, unless you can show us, some basis for thinking you own the property, then we're going to have to consider that the town's given up on this and conceded. I don't want to chain off the property. I want to leave it open. We're offering to 95% of the people, including all the neighbors, who want to walk down there, permanent access. Paul Reed wants to take his kayak down there because he's done it twice a summer for the last few years. He's one of the people who came down. It took him a half hour to get his kayak in the water, up to here in mud, had waders, and a half an hour to get it out. He came down to make a point. I appreciate that. I appreciate if he's angry that the town has misled him all this time. It's not my fault, though. Not my fault. So, if people will continue to come down and cause problems for us and unhappiness for them, saying, well, I want to make sure I can keep my rights here to drive my car down into the wetlands. As long as this thing is up and running. So let's resolve it.
In terms of your
participation.
interface with people, have you said that they're welcome to be there on foot or whatever you've been?
Everybody who comes on foot knows they're welcome.
If they didn't come on foot?
They come on foot.
If they did not come on foot? If they drop their kayak down there on a vehicle? What happens in
The only
that case?
people who've come down in cars, there have been two kayakers since June, as far as I know, maybe more that we didn't see. But there was somebody there, 48 hours a week for almost all the summer. And, the few kayakers that came, I think our contractor said, it's private property, we really wish you wouldn't do this. But I don't think anybody said to him, we think it's private property, we don't like this. And we don't. But we've been sitting on this for 3 months. And if we're right, and the town is telling us that we have to have cars on our property, from our point of view, that's what's going on. The town is telling us we have to have vehicular traffic. Somebody gets hit with a car, whose liability is that?
Mr. Frampton, Attorney Frampton, I know...
I don't address you by your...
I'm not an attorney.
The only person who's ever called me Attorney Frampton is your lawyer. What does that tell you about this situation?
Can I just ask a question? I know it's public comment, but if you don't mind. In the 3 months that you've been waiting for a response from Town Hall, what did you do in the meantime to elicit a response from Town Hall? Or did you do anything? Did you call Tim, or did you call anybody, or find out where your report stood? Yeah,
well, Tim and I have had a couple of conversations, and I've said to Tim, and Tim has been, very, I would say, sensitive or concerned about working this out in some way. But I think he recognizes, perhaps he did read the document, that there's an end game here. The end game is we own the property. We want to close it off, we can. We won't. We want to work out something that's really good for the town and for 99% of the people who own the business. okay? But just keeping it up in the air and promising people who are neighbors that, oh, the town is opposed, the town has a different position, go down there and prove the rights, all that's doing is causing confusion and a lot of animosity on all sides. Yesterday, you know, we had a conversation with a neighbor whose mother came down and, you know, came down to complain about her mother. And we had a 2-hour conversation with her. And she said, well, if you own the property, why would you shouldn't ask me. If I own the property, I never wanted this to be people to come down here. I like to use it, but we don't like anybody else to use it. I told Tim 2 years ago he should keep it up, you know. So the neighbors, we don't want people coming here, just the neighbors. But if you own it, why should you even have the neighbors come on the property? Why should you do that? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't let somebody walk down here if I owned it. So if you own it, why are you trying to do this? The people who walk, we've met, we like, we know most of our neighbors now. But there are people who live on Cold Lane. Those houses have been advertised. Go look at MLS. Those houses have been advertised as having a deeded right to the river.
I guess that would be true of everyone.
Well, deeded in a sense, that's true, but not advertised that way, as a personal right. And in fact, I've talked to a couple of people who said, well, this is, yeah, we have the right to use this, but it's only for local people. Only for people on Cold Lane. It's reserved for people on Cold Lane. We're the only people. You can chase other people off. This is Carl. Real estate, people have been selling those houses for 25 years as having access to the river. And if people want to use their cars to go there, I'm sorry that we're not going to welcome that. But they are going to have that right, and we're going to be very happy with it. And we said that from the beginning, even when we were having, you know, trucks drive down there in a rainstorm in the middle of the night and sit outside our house. That's the way it was last year. That stopped.
Yeah, well, that I think was because it was unoccupied for a couple of years and all that. So now that you're there, it's different.
I mean, look, I'm making a claim I made 3 months ago. We own the property. It's perfectly clear we own the property. There's no lawyer in the country who's going to read that ultimately and say, well, no, maybe you don't. This is the way it works in the United States. That's the way you establish land ownership. We did it. No doubt about it. I'm sorry that for, 30 or 40 years, people or some or other people have been considering, we explain in the memorandum in huge detail exactly how it got to be labeled as a landing and how that portion got separated out the first time it was ever surveyed for a land conveyance, because it hadn't passed out of the original family for hundreds of years. The first time they had a surveyor identified the plot as having 3 pieces of property, 2 addresses and a landing. And all of that property was conveyed on to the next owner, and then to the next owner, and then to us. We explained the history of that, how it happened in 1931 that somebody in the town said, you ought to go find these. We only did this for 1 of 7 landings. The town assumed that there are 7 or 8 other landings that it owns in 1931. Has anybody looked at the other landings? Pilgrim's Landing? The only basis for it was an assumption that the surveyor didn't go out and check 2 landings, Rogers Lake and ours. Didn't check the deeds for the other. And the surveyor that did that understood that it was a right-of-way on our property that had been created in 1701. The problem is the right-of-way was on the neighbor's property. It's not on our property, it's on the neighbor's property. The original right-of-way, which was abandoned probably 200 years ago, but certainly 125 years ago, when the whole thing was wiped out by a pond, an ice pond. That's where the right-of-way was. It came down on our neighbor's property and went to what used to be the brook. which is now an ice pond. You can get to the landing, but you have to put on a snorkel. That's the right-of-way part of it, but the ownership part of it is clear as a bell. So I'm sorry, I've taken up much too much of your time. But you can see this is frustrating. I understand it's frustrating for you. But you ought to have a full story of the facts here before, sort of, in effect, setting the rest of the neighborhood up on us, which is what you've done.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Before setting the rest of the neighborhood off against us. We're the subject of an email chain and a social media, people who, have called us scum coming to the neighborhood. That's what's happened here. So the town has some obligation to resolve this. The town respects private property, then it's going to respect the fact that we're prepared to do what would, to create an easement, to create a right-of-way, which we don't have to do, in a new place to allow people to actually enjoy the pond and enjoy the coming down into the reeds. It's a beautiful little place. Not with cars, but it's a beautiful place to come to. And we're happy to dedicate it to that.
Very good. Thank you. Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Paul Reed, 9 Colt Lane. Just to clear up a couple of things, there's only one Paul Reed on the street, and that's me. I haven't launched my kayak from that location in probably over 10 years. When I did it, I found it to be difficult, and being a little bit on the lazy side, decided I'm not going to launch there anymore. But I know there are some other people that do launch there once in a while. They're willing to tough it out and get in and out of there, and God bless them. I wish I had that much energy nowadays, but I don't. Now, I have a couple of questions for the Board of Selectmen that you may not know the answers to, but I think you should find out the answers to. First, we'll see who did the title search. Okay? If that was Mr. Frampton or Ms. DeRista, then that's akin to the tobacco companies doing the research on nicotine addiction. So I don't think that really should hold any water. If they really believe that, then they should have an independent title search company do that title search.
Well, there would be corroboration, yes.
Or that would be corroboration, or maybe the town should have the title search done. The town should pay the money for the title search.
That's why we have Collins looking at it.
Awesome. That's exactly the right thing to do. The second thing I would say is the sign that said Tantamaheg Landing went down and the private property sign up long before they did the title search. That does not sound to me like they realized, oh wait, this is our property. I know when the realtor advertised it, they knew that that was town property. So to make that change right then, and then do the title search ex post facto, doesn't seem straightforward to me either. Again, if they were trying to cooperate with the neighborhood, they would have done nothing to that property until they got it straightened out, until they put in this title search and said, hey, it's ours, and let's get this straightened out. But they have been continually doing things down there, contrary to what you have told them to. And they have been telling people to leave. I was one of the people that did drive down there this weekend, okay? And again, I had not driven down that landing in 10 or 12 years, probably since Diana Edward Johnson was trying to swap it. I drove down there every once in a while just to kind of check it out and see, are people really driving, a lot of people coming down here or not, and try to get an honest view of what's going on. Yesterday when I went down there, I was on my way home from someplace and I was short on time. I didn't have time to take a walk down there, so I knew I was coming to the meeting today, wanted to drive down there and just take a look and see what the latest status was, so that I would have honest, current information when I came to the meeting. I drove down there, noticed it, there was a significant amount of reseeding being done on the town property. It was all reseeded there, hayed over, and then there was a series of plantings along the edge of the road blocking off the access to the landing. The plantings had not gone in yet, it looks like they were being placed where they were going to go. When I saw that, I said, okay, well, now I've got the information I need. Ms. DeRista came storming down from the house, yelling at me, to get off there. This is private property. You're not allowed here. This is private property. My intention was, at that point, to try to figure out a way to turn around without touching any of the plantings or anything else, but there wasn't much room left to do that. So I started to pull into their section of the driveway a little bit, seeing if maybe I could do a 3 or maybe an 18-point turn to get out of there without going over the newly seeded grass, which is on town property. And she said, "Now you're on our property. You can't do that. You can't do that." So, all right. You want me out of here? I got to get out of here. The only way I'm going to be able to do it is to back into that area of town property, the seeded section, and go out. And she was yelling and screaming at me as I left. They're clearly not trying to cooperate with the neighborhood here. You know, like I said, if they really believed that that was their property from the start, they should have just started the process and just waited it out. You know, nobody would be mad at them. More people are driving down here for the same reason I am. They want to check out what the latest status is. I had been told earlier in the day that somebody had been down there earlier in the week and the road was blocked with construction equipment and nobody could get down there. So before I came today, I wanted honest information. I wanted current information. So I'm sorry if that upset Mr. Franklin and his wife, but they're not letting the process play out. They're trying to push the process. Was there anything else on my list? No, I think that's it. Okay? Thank you for your time.
This is where I stood last time, so I feel like I would prefer to stand here again.
I haven't put my vote in there.
Okay.
My name is Sheila Riffle. I live at 57 Colt Lane, right on the corner of Colt and Tanamahag. I've not had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Frampton, nor his wife Carla. My wife Linda has met Carla briefly some time ago. I'm not upset with Mr. Frampton or Carla. I don't know them, and frankly, if I owned that property, I would want to protect it in ways that they're protecting it as well. I have lived at this residence since the fall of 2016, and in the spring of 2017, my wife and I wrote a letter to Diana Atwood Johnson acknowledging the fact that one of the reasons we purchased there was due to that access point, so close to where we were living, and that we fully intended to utilize it, but we had no intentions of being intrusive to her and her privacy, and we empathized with the fact that that must be difficult living at that residence next to a public access point. Wasn't long after the new owners took ownership that the boulders came out and the sign came down, and frankly, since that has occurred, we have not taken those steps to write that letter. I'll meet Mr. Frampton separately. I agree with very much of what Mr. Frampton said. I am not an attorney. I have never done a title search. My concerns are the inaction of this Board of Selectmen towards taxpayer disputes with one another. So there's a belief being stated that one is being pitted against the other. And I have to tell you, as a short-term resident on Colt Lane, I've not met anyone who is looking to cause anybody harm. But when you have inaction from leadership, and people are having a disagreement such as this, there is animosity that gets created, and it's unnecessary and it's unfortunate. And I sent an email to all 3 select persons a week ago asking for the answers to my questions that I stated here at this meeting 2 weeks ago. I received 1 response out of 3. And now, from my FOI request, shortly before this meeting, I'm assuming around the same time Mr. Frampton received it, I received a copy of the town attorney's letter saying that they are in receipt of a memorandum that's dated July 7th. So, as a taxpayer, I want to know what is being done about this. I also, for the record, want to say that I am someone who drove my car down there, and it was in August, and I was told by the contractor that he was supposed to tell me that it's private property and I can't be there. And the only reason, just to make sure you know this, that I drove down there was to take 2 kayaks down. So, assumptions are being made, disagreements are happening in an otherwise beautiful, peaceful neighborhood. And unfortunately, I feel as though that is happening because of your inaction. And I would really like to know how this is going to be resolved and what action the Board of Selectmen will be taking so that it gets resolved with evidence, with documentation, and we can all just live happily ever after. While I'm here, I just want to thank you for my now renewed interest in town government. Because after 2 meetings, I have so many questions, and shame on me for not being involved in the past. That's going to change because we deserve to know what is going on. I don't understand why on the website there is a message that says masks must be worn, followed with a description of the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously. And this is the second meeting I've attended where one selectman is just completely, the lack of leadership there, sir, is concerning to me. And the lack of, I don't understand. I don't understand why meetings are at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock for a Board of Selectmen. How many people can get to a 4 o'clock meeting? I'll stop because this should be a timed thing, and it's not even a timed thing. Like, there should be a process. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Carolyn Miranda, and I live on Biscayne Boulevard, No Line, on the corner of 156 and Biscayne. And I've been here 54 years and a permanent resident the past year and a half. And I was hoping I was going to love this town, but I have concerns that make me wonder. First thing I wanted to talk about, first I want to let you know, at your last meeting, I hung on the phone for 2 hours and 39 minutes because your WebEx never let people get back on. I want to know what that was about. The only way I had things to say last time. The only way I knew that I found it very interesting to find out that maybe the third agenda item was executive session. I've been to lots of meetings and I've never seen people use executive session so early in the session and then exclude all these people for hours at a time. Did you know the system wasn't working?
It blanked out, so...
I don't know that it blanked out because every maybe 20, 25 minutes, the voice on the phone would say that they're going to cut me off. So every 5 or 10 minutes, I'd call back and I'd get back on with a new number. And the response was the manager it's not in session, the manager is not back yet. I'd hold another 20, 25 minutes, I get cut off again. So I called, and I have it recorded on my phone 7 times for 2 hours and 39 minutes. The only way I knew that you had gone back into session was a neighbor called me who was holding on also, and he said he thought it was very strange that you didn't go back into session. So he took a ride and got some groceries, and then he stopped here, and he was one of the last people to come in here. His name was Larry, and he got to speak. He called me at exactly 7:39 or 6:39 to say, hey, I'm here, they're meeting. Have you been participating? And that's when I found out, no, me and how many others didn't get to participate. So that's a real disappointment. It seems to me, after a year and a half of Zoom meetings, that this shouldn't be happening. So my question to you is, do you have a new system?
We're using it today. Hopefully it's doing what it should.
Okay. And so I did come to town hall to complain, and just now, no nothing. Geez, sorry that happened. Not from you, not from anybody in your office. Common courtesy. Gee, sorry that happened. No, don't you think? Would you expect that from someone? If you were the person, would you?
You certainly don't know who's on the phone when you're.
No, that's not the point. If I come and I let you know that nobody ever got back and I held on forever, and I tell your secretary, and now I'm telling you, and you didn't even think to respond. Sorry, it happened. You know? Mm-hmm. Okay.
We're sorry it happened.
Thank you, Mary Jo. So what I wanted to talk about last time was sidewalks, or your sidewalk project. And I have some thoughts about that. If your sidewalk, in fact, the intention was to provide public safety for people down in the beach area, which I assume it was, then there's a lot of other needs that need to happen. Because I live right there and I see it all the time, we need another crosswalk so people from my side of the street can get across the street, across lane, to access the sidewalks. Okay? We're in peril and jeopardy all the time. The traffic is terrible there. It's 30 miles an hour and everybody speeds by at 50 miles an hour. I've talked to the police department. They do nothing. Okay, so my other suggestion is you need more signs. You got a nice sidewalk there. It's supposed to help protect the public. But if you don't have any yellow signs up there with the little stick figures walking or pedestrians or slow down or caution, what good is it? Because if the traffic won't slow down because you're enforcing it, hopefully with signage, a lot of signage that wakes people up, then there's no sense to have sidewalks. You're not keeping them safe. If you go down, and I don't know, how many, do you both travel down that way very frequently? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know what? It's not just in the summer. I think there's a perception that the traffic is, and a lot of people in the summer. It's year-round. It's all the time. It's all the time. And I'll bet you people in the 30-mile-an-hour zone along that whole stretch of all the beaches are doing 50, minimum. It's outrageous. We have children walking. We have children on bikes. We have bicyclists that look really professional and doing their thing. And then we've got these big wheelers and big trucks and local vehicles just speeding up and down that road. So something's got to happen with that. My suggestion would be that from Robbins Avenue, which is the beginning of Hawksnest Beach, it's right across the street from the little golf place, from Robbins Avenue all the way down at least to Point of Woods, but more specifically at least all the way to Swan Avenue, where there's such an immense amount of traffic, pedestrian and cars. I don't know if it's your jurisdiction or if it's the state's jurisdiction to provide signage and maybe stripe the road with big caution signs, slow, pedestrians, whatever. I think a good example for you to look at would be down in Niantic. You get to a portion of Niantic, and boy, you know you better slow down for those pedestrians. They have all kinds of striping in the road. They have all kinds of, in the middle of the road, they have those slow pedestrians walking. And we had a few of them, 1 or 2 or 3 down on Hartford Avenue, but not along 156, where they're all traveling like crazy. So more signage. There's a no parking sign too far down on 156. It should be right before you get to Teddy's restaurant if you're traveling from west to east. So nobody parks there. All along the south side of 156, there needs to be more signage, no parking. I think most important is, I've talked to many people down there. We can't get across the street safely from our side of the road to the north side where Teddy's is and where the sidewalks are, where we can walk down to the convenience store if we want to. You just take your life in your hand all the time. And I see children right out my living room window all the time trying to cross 156 with bicycles and go to the park. We have a park right down on Cross Lane. And, you know, I watch it and say, holy God, sometimes, one of these days they won't make it. We had a child get hit by a car on Swan Avenue in July. We had a 2-car accident in Portland, on Portland and 156. I believe early August. It demolished at least one of the cars, and you just have to pay more attention. If you're going to have those beautiful sidewalks to keep people safe, you have to look at the signage, and you have to especially have somebody work on the 30-mile-an-hour zone because it's not working. Okay. Then I wanted to talk about your transportation hub. Could you tell me a little bit more about it? Besides a bus shelter, and I saw there was going to be a budget for trees, what else is planned down there?
Tim, is it okay if we talk about this? Okay. Yeah. Basically, and the plans are on the website if people want more information. It is a basic bus shelter. The bus will be able to come off of 156 and enter like on Old Colony Road, stop basically by the crosswalk between the church and the ADA accessible ramp that will be put in, the DOT did not put in years ago, on the southwest corner of that lot, 290 Shore Road, which is an unimproved lot the town owns. So they'll be able to safely walk across the street between the church and the bus, or from the bus to the church side and go down to the beach. But right now it's going to be a bus shelter. There'll be a bench. There'll be 2 bike racks for people that are coming on the 9-town transit. They have rack systems, so you can put your bike on there and travel basically across the state at some point, because 156 is a state bike route. There'll be the plans include a bike repair station. It's about 3 feet tall, metal, with cable tools and air, and people that have a flat tire, for example, can put their bike on it and change a tire, put air in it. Pretty common with cyclists now in different towns. And then we had some basic landscaping that's planned, trying to keep a nautical theme. So we had some piers and rope that is on the plan to make it look attractive. And so that whole corner, the southwest corner, so across from Dimitri's, is where this hub is going to be. The trees that are planned were planned to be placed by the 2 properties that abut the 290 Shore Road to give them some buffering. And the committee will be discussing whether we're going to be doing that, budget allowing, and whether the homeowners really want that. So they may prefer a fence in some cases.
So there's no plans for any commuter parking?
There's no parking plans at all.
Okay.
It's just the bus, and that's all the DOT is verbally given us approval for also.
Okay. So I'm wondering, I never see riders on the bus. And I'm wondering if this bus shelter is necessary, what kind of surveys have been done to find out what the ridership is. When I travel, even all the way down to Old Line, Big Y, there's never anybody on these buses. Never, ever, ever. I saw one person on the bus this summer. I travel that road all the time with my kids, and I'm transporting, all the time. Nobody rides that bus, little to no. So I'm wondering if this project is something we should be spending, $43,000 on or something, that I should figure something like that. Maybe it would be better spent doing things to protect our pedestrians and the residents who live down there in town. All right, thank you. And one other thing. I'm very concerned about the future commercial development on 156. I would say between maybe Blackhall, where the tackle shop is, and probably all the way down to Point of Woods. On the south side of 156 Shore Road, in that area, are beaches and some beautiful streets, Button Ball, Hay Wagon, just beautiful properties. People have invested a lot of money over the years in town at our beach residences. And we've been called the summer people for a long time, and we don't like that. And we're not the summer people. We're taxpayers. A large percentage of our taxes fund your education system. That's correct, right? Okay. We deserve your respect. We deserve better than thinking you should develop, or maybe it's zoning, I don't know who it is, but thinking that perhaps the north side of the shoreline there, opposite our residences, are a combination of, let me just read you, show you. There's a defunct gas station right before, it used to be boarded up, I guess it's cleaned up now, but it looks terrible, right before the golf course. There's Cherry Stones to Go, vacant. 100 Acres Restaurant, i.e. they named it Cherry Stones after a while, abandoned, boarded up for years and years and years. And just recently did they finally cut down all the vegetation around it so it doesn't look so horrible. There's a new parking lot right to the right of the golf course. It says RV and boat parking lot. It's now active. I stopped at the Selectmen's office to find out how that happens. It's on a residential piece of property. There's a house and there's property in front of it. And now we have boats and recreation vehicles parked there. It looks terrible. Then we have the very nice looking, old shore landing. It doesn't seem to be very occupied, but at least it looks nice. Then we have the Just Dump It, heavy dump truck place, and it happens to be right across from my side yard, where I have to look and listen to heavy-duty trucks and these containers they put on the back of them and go fill them up, and then they go in the dump. They put them in the back, but they don't put them in the back. They put them so I have to see them every day. Then you go a little further and you see the defunct building right between Portland Avenue and Hartford Avenue, and that's just went up. It's for sale. It's an old building. You see some, I don't know,
Italian American.
Yeah, something, right. That's been there forever and ever, a real eyesore, and just until a few weeks ago did they finally cut down 5-foot-high grasses. Then we got the defunct pizza place across from the convenience store. Okay? Besides that, we have 2 storage facilities already built. I'd say one is across from Hawks, maybe they're both across from Hawks Nest Beaches. And a third one has been approved, was approved about a year ago, but it's not built yet. And then this spring, on March 8th, somebody proposed building 3 monstrous storage, 3 more storage units, 3 stories high, 150 feet wide, long, 70 feet wide, that, come to find out, didn't even meet fire code for a lot of reasons, and there was a lot of DOT problems, and there was a lot of engineering problems. I'm saying we're better than that. We deserve better than that. I'm going to ask you people to please consider a moratorium on any more commercial development where I just told you, all the way from Black Hall, probably down to Point of Woods, but specifically at least as far as Old Lyme Shores, until a vision can be developed. I know you have this village district and all these visions for this side of town. What about us over on the south side? It seems like there's maybe a mentality of some people that will just let somebody throw something at the wall and see what sticks. And that's not good enough for us residents. When we found out about this 250 Shore Road development for these 3 enormous storage buildings, they'd done no marketing research. They couldn't give us a reason why we needed to have another facility like that. So we got active, and we provided at 3 meetings. We had a Zoom meeting with over 40 people at that Zoom meeting specifically about that building project. We attended a couple other Zoom meetings. We had a regular meeting, and then the meeting on August 12th, finally was canceled because the company had 6 months from March 2nd, I believe, till August 12th to come up with fire marshal reports, engineering reports, and DOT reports. And they came in very late because they did it last minute, and they found that they didn't have any more time to fix what needed to be fixed so that they could go forward with zoning, because that's a 6-month process, I was told. So we rallied together, and we attended all those meetings, and we submitted a petition with 172 of our beach residents who don't want nonsense like that built and thrown at us. O-Line needs to find out what the residents want down here, especially in that end of town. You know, I think the first good thing you've done forever is had a building torn down on Harvard Avenue a couple years ago, and you're starting to spruce up down there. However, I'm not quite sure about that because I think it's bringing along a lot of problems. We had a lot of problems this summer with policing and everything down there. However, so that's my spiel, and I'm really serious about thinking about a moratorium. However you need to do it, on no more commercial development until maybe a committee, maybe you can appoint a committee to develop a vision for that end of town. And there's several residents in my area that would be happy to sit on that committee with whoever from town needs to sit and see if we can come up with something that is deserving of the taxpayers and citizens in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak from the audience? Please come.
Thank you. Well, you can hear me. I'm a little COVID shy, so I don't want to get too close. Mary Daly, Portland Avenue.
It's Kobashar?
I'm COVID shy. First of all, to Selectman Nolan, I just want to thank you, your dedication, your sincerity to the causes that you believe in. It's so obvious. I just thank you so much for all of your efforts. Absolutely. You deserve it. I think the reason why, as that woman pointed out, the phone dropped at the last Selectmen's meeting was because when you went into executive session, whoever went dropped the phone line or disconnected it, because it did say after 5 minutes this line will drop. The host says left the meeting. You cannot leave the meeting if you're the host. You must keep that line open, because I too tried for hours to get back on, because there were items on that agenda that I was very interested in, including the sewer project. You know me, so the sewer project. And I didn't get to hear what went on in the rest of the meeting, so I don't even know if the rest of your meeting was valid once you disconnected the public from it. But anyway, I did attend the town meeting last Monday in regard to the additional $42,000 for the police department. And I don't think the issue was should the police get paid. Everyone agrees the police should get paid. I think the issue was more the accountability of why there was an over budget to begin with and why that wasn't foreseen. So I think, in my opinion, many of our town governing, as we know, many of our town boards are unpaid, appointed volunteers who unselfishly give their time and expertise to Old Lyme, which is great, for free, and that's honorable. Small towns like Old Lyme depend on those volunteers and probably couldn't exist without it. But I believe it is still the responsibility of our elected leaders to steer and guide those volunteers and have the last say, the final decision on major developments, housing, and of course, finances. And to that end, I'd like to ask you, Mr. First Selectman, regarding the WPCA spending $48,000 in 2019 to recess Hawk's Nest, but not pursue analysis, and to reject the analysis that was presented to them by one of the country's top specialists in this field. What your opinion of that is do you feel that was money well spent at this point? I'd also like to ask your opinion in regard to the WPCA's retaining an outside assessor to evaluate Soundview properties, signing a contract demanding a $25,000 retainer, which was potentially $80,000 when all is said and done, even though the town already has a full-time, salaried, and highly qualified assessor on staff. And finally, I'd like to ask your opinion or your viewpoint, Mr. First Selectman, on signing binding contracts with New London, East Lyme, and Waterford when financially the whole Soundview sewer initiative may be in jeopardy. Initial bids, as you mentioned today, are twice as high as had been expected. The referendum for $9.5 million will not address that. We're up to $18.5 right now on the current received bids. Where will that money come from? It's not budgeted. You cannot charge the whole thing to 200 property owners in Soundview, because as you know very well, the state statutes will not allow you to do that. So will we be going for another referendum, and will this town be able to come up with the extra $9.5 million? It's kind of doubtful. And so I wonder why the urgency right now, as being presented by the WPCA, is to sign more contracts with our surrounding towns and with the private beach associations. I just don't get it, why you wouldn't wait to see when those bids come in and what the real cost of this project is going to be before you sign additional contracts with anyone outside of this town or the private beach association. I think the homeowners in Soundview, I appreciate your viewpoint, but the homeowners in Soundview have been asking these questions for over 2 years, among other questions. This format where we go back and forth here is unique because, as you may know, at the WPCA meetings, you're allowed 3 minutes to talk and there are no answers. They tell you up front they're not going to give you any answers. But we have been waiting for 2 years, for some answers, a few answers, just a couple answers to our questions. We have posted them to WPCA, they go ignored. We come to you and ask you, we have no answers. So as much as I sympathize with 2 meetings, we've waited 2 years. And we'd like to know if some of those questions that we posted online and emails at meetings will be answered before the November elections. Thank you.
Anyone else here? Anyone on the phone who would like to make a public comment?
Is anyone there?
I think it's got a number on it. Okay, we'll move to other business then.
I have none.
Okay.
Do you have any? Do you have any?
No.
At our last meeting, I brought up a concern about a fellow that we have contract with who cleans our beaches, not paid his bills, been on years of concern about this, and you said to write you a memo about it. Well, I didn't have to write you a memo. There's lots of emails on it, but your own finance department issued a memo on September 17th about the situation, this ongoing situation. I mean, I do not know why we have this person employed by the town if he cannot pay his bills, why we have special payment arrangements for him, why we keep getting complaints from people at Soundview, Miami Beach, that the buoys and the swim lines are not accurate, and yet we can't resolve. And to me, it's almost low-hanging fruit. But anyway, I know you got this memo, so I don't have to write you a special memo. It needs to be addressed. Employee handbook. We have been requested by our finance department, and maybe our auditors will have request it, that we finally sign off on employee handbook changes. We've got to put that on our agenda and do that.
We can.
Okay, great. And then
You got issues you want to revisit in it?
your finance department does. They sent us all memos to take a look at this and have a formal review. Even the handbook says we're supposed to review it annually, so we need to have a review of that and the items that your finance department have asked us to do. I would think that would be something we could do. And then finally, I was just going to ask an update. In my opinion, we were rushing on our HR vote last meeting without a lot of information, without any specifics. I think you had said something about we'll have to get some cost data going forward. So I was wondering where we're at with that firm that was selected by majority vote. What's happened in 2 weeks?
I believe the firm will be coming to Town Hall in the near future. I don't know the date's been set, but it'll be the first introductory session.
Okay. And will the selectmen get to see the budget?
Yeah, when we get that meeting date, we can circulate that.
Okay, because that's very important to me, since I won't be at this table after November. I'd like to make sure that the things I can make sure are done, get done. And as you know, we know that the wage survey is one part of it, but also the HR part-time person, which is sorely needed. That function needs to be done, and I'm getting the impression we're moving forward to the salary review, job description review first.
Yep.
So, and we really need to have an HR function done. Okay. Then lastly, I again ask my fellow Board of Selectmen to seriously take a moment and read again the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. It is a value statement. I'm asking for a sign-off on the document and proper procedures to make sure that we govern with an equitable eye in the future. Thank you.
Very good. If there's nothing further, I guess we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Feel better?
Right.
Oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's a 3-day head.
Oh, I'm sorry?
Wait a minute. I'll try you back. Okay.
Can you take a picture of the memo from Collins, Frampton?
She has it. I think it's missing from my file, so speak to...
All right.
Yeah.
Another question for you.
Yeah.
Why don't you just bring up the racism resolution as an agenda item and vote on it so that he doesn't have to keep asking?
Well, we've expressed that in the past. We don't want to bring it to a vote because we don't agree with the language.
Well, you don't have to agree with the language to bring it to a vote, right? Vote against it. It's interesting that it comes up every time.
She can ask it 100 times, and if we want to act on it,
what is the process for getting things on the agenda? Like, who decides what goes on the agenda?
I create the agenda, and then if something comes along, it'll be put on the agenda, the logical stuff. But if somebody wants to bring something, I guess it would be a majority vote to add something to the agenda.
Right, okay.
I think the open doors creating our cooling system to go haywire. Yeah, Kate Hewitt has that dachshund, so they get along okay.
Yeah.
You have a dog?
I do have two.
Bigger ones?
Medium size.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both about 50 pounds. Oh, yeah.
60?
50.
5-0.
I'll ask him, I'll also ask him if I could give him your email.
And I really did not want to. I know she's down there. I probably would have walked down.
You've been hunting
Just
for
walk down, see what her reaction to that.
Well,
What's going on?
oh, yeah. Probably, yeah. I don't know when. Anyway, so you can come, give me a call if I can make some calls. Okay, very appreciate your time taking the trip down. Again, some more, right?
Can I take a photo and how about the finance department memo about refresh my memory. The one we talked about.